Are you ready to untangle from your past, recover from heartbreak, and revive your life? This is Soul CPR with your host, Ann Papayoti. We've all had soul-crushing experiences and lost ourselves in our pain, but there is a way out. On this podcast, Amazon best-selling author, award-winning life coach, and advice columnist Ann Papayoti helps us navigate the path from heartbreak to healing. So now, please welcome the host of Soul CPR, Ann Papayoti.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. Last week I had on a couple of high school friends, Lee Hayes and Al Eason. Lee is a domestic violence survivor, and Al Eason, a 25-year police force veteran. And they joined me for a discussion on domestic violence, this being the Awareness Month. And we could have stayed on air for hours. We had so much more to talk about, and we did stay after and talk with each other, and even later that evening got on Facebook and talked some more. There's just so much to be discussed around this topic. And here on Soul CPR Healing Out Loud, we are going to say more. Today, it's an absolute privilege to have Carolyn Markel join me to share her powerful journey from surviving abuse to becoming a dedicated advocate for others. Her story is not only inspiring, but a testament really to the strength and resilience it takes to turn pain into purpose. Now, Carolyn Markel, formerly Markel Hammond, is a 4-time international best-selling author, and she's the founder and CEO of Safe in Harm's Way. I can't wait for you to learn more about that. Her work with Fortune 500 corporations and billion-dollar brands has impacted 100,000 people to empower healing and to eliminate silence and shame. Her results showcase Times Square to small town locations, lead to individualized, uniquely designed healing solutions which foster confidence, safety, privacy, and build community, all things we were talking about last week on this show. As a trauma-informed coach and 20 Most Inspiring Leader, Carolyn's personal journey of navigating the after of sexual violence has been featured on Oprah, Forbes, PBS, NPR, Miss Magazine, Newsweek, television, radio, and podcasts. Her team's efforts have included numerous awards, including 2 Manny Awards and 4 Anthem Awards. Carolyn can be found anywhere across the globe, coupling her advocacy with travel for live music and creating intimate gatherings for her chosen family and friends. I love that. Carolyn, welcome to the show.
And thank you so much for having me today. I'm so glad that I get to be here and share this time with you.
Oh, absolutely. It's so nice to see you again. I have to give a shout out to our mutual friend, Joe Killingsworth, who on LinkedIn connected us because he knew that we would have so much in common. And I think it was early last year that he put us in touch with one another. And then we had like a little virtual coffee and shared our personal stories. And we connected right away and knew we would find a way to work together. And you helped prepare me as I was going to speak at a women's conference in and I really appreciated that. You really set me up for success and helped me have my confidence, because while I've been more working privately with private groups and support and with one-on-one, I hadn't gone out and really spoken out loud. I'd shared my story in a book, not in a huge way, in a small way, in a one chapter kind of way. And so I really became a fan of yours, and I've been following your work ever since, because I saw that you have been out loud and out front fearlessly, truly. And I just really have been excited to now share you with my audience, because this is something that, of course, I've started since I met you. So, here we are. And one thing that I learned in that virtual coffee hour that we had together was, like most people who find themselves in an abusive relationship or marriage, as you and I did, it didn't start out that way. Remember the first time that you realized or recognized or experienced abuse? And thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure, that's a great question because it's a two-part answer.
Mhm.
So the first part would have been about 6 weeks into us dating. Now,
Wow.
clarify before I start this, I didn't recognize it as abuse. Not at
Mhm.
all. So we're dating. We go off for a long weekend in Vegas. And I come downstairs feeling like all into myself, right? Like I've got the cute hair, I've got the outfit, I got the cute shoes. And he says to me, "You look like a slut."
Mm.
And I said, Actually, I don't look like a slut. Like I'm wearing clothes that fit me and that I love. And I start to defend myself, right? I don't look like a slut. And he says, "Well, I think you do."
Wow.
And I defend myself again. He's like, "Oh my God, you can't take a joke. Like, seriously, you can't take a joke." And then he goes on to say that he was just joking and I took it way too personally. And then what he does is he takes me out and he buys me a new pair of shoes. That right there, encapsulated in that 35 seconds, is love bombing and then also starting to denigrate someone, which
Right.
abusers do. They
Mhm.
soup you up and then they denigrate you and then they tell you it's all your fault that you can't take a joke and then they'll love bomb you with some kind of gift.
Right.
I did not know that that was what was happening to me. If you want to ask the very first time that I realized I was being abused, that what I had lived with my entire relationship for 8 years was abuse. It would have been when I was in a domestic violence shelter and they gave me the wheel of power and control. And I looked at that
Wow.
wheel of power and control and I thought, uh, this has been my life with
Mm.
this man. This has been my life with this man. And I would not have recognized it. And Anne, you and I talked about this, and it bears out no matter where I roam in this world. People who have survived the normalization of violence in their relationships are
Mhm.
intelligent. They are
Yes.
highly empathetic.
Right.
They do not quit and they always win, which is why they're a magnet for abusers because we'll stay to try to fix it. We'll stay to defend
Yeah.
ourselves. We'll stay because we've been told an origin story from the
Mhm.
abuser that says, "Oh, sweet pea, you're the only one who can love me. I've had such a horrible life. My first wife didn't love me, and my parents didn't love me, and I've been bullied, and you're the only one who can fix all that." And so
Yeah.
when we start to have the epiphany of, well, this is kind of crazy, we start repeating that origin story. Yes, but he's never been loved, and his first wife was horrible. Side note, his first wife is an absolutely lovely, fabulous human, not a horrible woman at all. Um,
Exactly.
so also true, right? If you actually, also true. Any abuser will say, "Oh my God, they were crazy. Oh my God, she was horrible." No, actually, they're really good
Yeah.
people. So you start to defend the person with the origin story you've been given from them, and you just
Right.
repeat that over and over and over again, sometimes for your life, sometimes until you have that light bulb moment where you decide this is enough. Or in my case, a light bulb moment that was so horrific, I decided to alter every single thing in my life in order to escape from him.
So what did escalation look like and sound like in your personal story? So it started with that a little bit of criticism, and then okay, I'm just teasing you, and then the love bombing, and then how did it start escalating?
It just kept getting bigger in those moments. So it
Right.
was more teasing or more degrading and from,
Mhm.
comments or making you feel bad. It went from, "Oh my God, I love walking behind you in any room because the amount of people who notice you and you're my girl, that makes me feel amazing," to, "How dare you wear that outfit? You want everybody to look at you?" It
Yeah.
just it takes the things that are inherently great and beautiful about yourself and twists them into a series of escalating events where you're just trying to tread water and make sense
Mhm.
of it all. So
Right.
my the escalation of that over years, coupled with, him disappearing, the whole, not talking to me for 2 days if I brought up a concern, to 3 days, to 4 days, to, longer and longer, those kinds of things. But it was actually the escalation. And what I see in the look behind was that I accidentally found on his computer about 4 weeks before our planned and paid for wedding that he had been marketing me, belonged to a group that taught people how to market and then drug and then rape their partners, allow other men to rape them, record it on video, and then clean up all the evidence. It's very much like a case that's happening right now that's making its way through the court system in Paris, France. And I accidentally discovered that on his computer, which is what saved my life.
Okay.
And leading up into this whole evolution is all the increasing escalations of the violence, whether it was physical or whether it was emotional or whether it was a verbal. And that's how Safe in Harm's Way was built, because I realized from the outside world, we were a golden couple. I mean, everybody thought we were it, right? Now, I would
Yeah.
never have said I was being abused, but I could have told you how sad I was all the time. Could have
Right.
told you how worried I was that he was lying. Could have told
Yeah.
you how afraid I was when he came home and threw the towels off the table because I didn't fold them correctly, and then chased me into the bathroom where I had to lock myself in. Could have told you I wondered if he was lying about some things. Could have told you that there was money that didn't quite add up. All of those things, the feelings, but I never would have identified as being abused.
Right. So what was the incident that led you into the shelter where they handed you that wheel and you went, oh my God, this has been my life, not just this incident that got me here today or tonight? What was that?
It was finding on his computer. It was in March of 2016. It was about 3:30 in the morning. And as I was going to bed, he said, love, I think I've done something that's going to make you really mad. I was like, what have you done? And then he proceeded to show me his computer, where it was filled with the past few weeks of corresponding with people on Craigslist and offering me up to have sex with them. This without my knowledge, without my consent, without my ever saying, hey, that's something I really like to do. None of that. And I said, oh, I'm not mad. I'm livid. Get out of my house. How dare you? Get out of my house. And you know what happened? Of course, I knew you were going to be mad at this. Now we're going to have to talk about all night how mad you are and how sad you are because I did this. I knew you were going to be mad about it. Like, if you knew I was going to be mad about it, why did you do any of this? And he started to turn this ugly shade of purple red and said, get back in this effing bed and you need to shut up.
Mhm.
So that was scary, like beyond belief. I climbed in bed, and I swear, if you believe in God or a higher power or the spirits of your animals, whoever, I've heard this whisper in my ear, like, shh, just be quiet. Just be quiet. And I waited till he fell asleep. And when he fell asleep, he had left his computer open because he said, you know what, check out on my computer. You can see what I've been doing, which he always did, which I never checked. So over the course of, whether it was like where he was traveling, there wasn't anything like this previously, but where he was traveling or, work stuff, I never would check his computer, would never look at it. So I went and took his computer, went into our kitchen, and between moments of vomiting and running to the bathroom and vomiting and running to the bathroom, I discovered that he had been, since about 8 weeks into our relationship, marketing me, offering me up to have sex with people, drugging me, allowing other people to rape me, and then cleaning up the evidence afterwards.
Oh, dear God.
So every email he sent started out with, my girlfriend has no idea I'm doing this to her, and ended with, I will facilitate what could be done to her. I the marketing. Now, he's the senior vice president of a major organization in Kansas City. Marketing and communications is his genre. The marketing of me would be to say, Carolyn, get dressed up. Put on your favorite dress. We're going out to eat. You've been traveling. We deserve a great meal. Get dressed up. And then he would take a picture of me. Well, what I didn't know was that was the marketing. He would put that out into the secret club that he belonged to. And he would have 4 or 5 men stationed around the restaurant and facilitate what could be done to me. So they were to check me out, decide what they wanted to do to me, and then he would facilitate that action. And I found this over and over again, starting about 8 weeks after the origin of us reconnecting, because this is a man, this is not the father of my children. This is a man I knew because we grew up in the same small town in St. Louis. This is a man I knew because we were friends in college, hung out together all the time. This was a man that we got reacquainted post both of our divorces. This wasn't someone who was not known to me that I started a relationship with. And he started doing this to me about 8 weeks after we reconnected and started dating exclusively with each other. And that continued on for the entirety of our relationship until I discovered it. Now, the other component is I would have never gone to my doctor and said, I think my boyfriend is drugging and raping me. But I could have told you all the times that parts of my anatomy were bruised or swollen, didn't make sense. And I would chalk it up to, well, I did work out really hard on the spin class yesterday. Yeah. I did ride the elliptical on a higher gear at a higher resistance yesterday. All the number of infections I had that I would call my OBGYN for. Again, I never would have said, I think this is what he's doing to me. I'm just responding to what's going on in my body. All of those things have stopped since I left him.
Wow.
So that component of the abuse, what started a covert escape plan, because I knew that he was doing this not just to me, but that he also did this to people he traveled with, both men and women. So he did this on his corporate laptop. He did this on his corporate cell phone. Now I want to draw a line right quick that people don't make.
Okay.
He's the vice president of a major organization. He's using his corporate cell phone. You Google that corporate cell phone number, it tells exactly whose phone number it is and where that person works. If someone shows up at a place of business in order to act revenge or act out anger because they've discovered that somebody is harming their loved one or has compromised their loved one in some way, they show up at work to do that. They kill not only the person that is their target, but 20% of the collateral, which means not only was he exposing me and our children to strangers in our home to drug and rape me, he was also exposing his coworkers to anyone to show up at his place of business. He was exposing every single person in his life, from his children to his former wife, to me, to my children, to his coworkers, with his evil and his covert behavior. And he did that unchecked for
Criminal
the entirety of
risky business. And as you say, it's not just domestic violence or intimate partner violence. It went well beyond that. It's sex trafficking by definition. It's time for our break. We're going to come back and we're going to pick up from there. Carolyn, thank you for being so honest and open about what you've experienced. I think it's hard for people to even grasp that kind of thing happens, but it does. And we have it from you. Don't go far. We'll be back with Carolyn and more Soul CPR.
Mike Zorich, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today on Soul CPR right here on Bold Brave TV, and my special guest, Carolyn Markel, who is here to have a conversation about domestic violence and monsters hiding in plain sight. Carolyn, this might be an unexpected question at this point, but when you were a little girl and people asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, do you remember how you answered?
I did. I remember that I wanted to be on Broadway, that I wanted to be in musicals, and I wanted to be in theater. So I wanted my name up in lights.
Wow. Well, I think you actually reached that maybe in an unexpected way, but tell us about your path to advocacy, if you will. After what happened after that night in the shelter, you realized this has been my life. You're probably dealing with a lot of, I can't imagine what you dealt with when you realized what had happened, but how did you go from that point to advocacy?
Much like a lot of survivors, when you try to file reports or you try to get traction, you don't often get it. Oftentimes, especially as it relates with rape and sexual assault, very rarely are those cases prosecuted. And I was not getting any help. I won the lottery in very many ways. I won the lottery in that I shared 0 children with this man. I won the lottery in that my friends and my family instantly said, "We believe you." I am alive today because the cardiac physician in the emergency room said, "I believe you," and helped me take action. I won the lottery. Where I did not win the lottery is an actual consequence for the person who's doing this thing to me. That still remains without a consequence. And I knew if I didn't start to talk about it and write about it, that I would lose my mind. And so I decided to start writing about it from the vantage point. Like I said, I knew where I won the lottery and I knew where the outages were. And so what if I could take the outages that I had, find the solutions, and make that available to people who needed it as well? So it started out as writing, and it grew from there, and it started then morphed into resources. And my dear friend from high school named Judy helped me come up with Safe in Harm's Way as the name of my organization. And over the years, and Anne, when you and I have talked, advocate is what I would have named myself. I'm actually switching that language to activist. I have to be acting consistently to share the resources and the solutions for people to find them themselves. But Safe in Harm's Way was born because Judy said to me, "Carolyn, you were the most unsafe when you were living with him. You were always in harm's way when you were living with him. Now you're safe, but you still have to combat being in harm's way because it doesn't go away." So what that did was start to begin my advocate activist journey, finding the solutions based on where I knew I win and where I knew I didn't win, connecting with people who looked different than me, different ethnicities, different sexual identification, different color of skin, everything about the differences in me, to find what were their unique situations and how could I help them. And that started to really expand this, what my kids and I call this ever expanding web of goodness, where when we connect people, much like you and I talking today, thank you, Joe Killingsworth, you start to make connections and you find the people that mesh with you and maybe are synergistic in what you're doing. And then you also find the people that have solutions that are quite different than yours that you can bring to the table as well. And it was a definite choice that I was going to start speaking even if my voice shook, which I think can be attributed to Maya Angelou. I believe there's a quote that she says to stand up and have strength even when your voice shakes. And so I decided to do that. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And the collaborations got bigger and the solutions became really dynamic for people to find.
Amazing. So tell us about Safe in Harm's Way and to give us the website address out loud so listeners
Sure.
can hear it. It'll definitely be in the show notes.
Sure. So safeinharmsway.org is the name of the organization. You can find us online. You can find us on social media, although we're revamping our social media right now. We offer technology and solutions at the fingertips of people because there's several big problems. First big problem is, even according to the data from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 40% of the calls that go to the hotline go unanswered.
Wow.
There are often no spaces at a shelter. So when I escaped, I was doing therapy at a shelter. There was not actually an open bed in all of Kansas City where I live. So I either slept in my car or I slept when I traveled for work, or I was very afraid. I had kids and friends that would have housed me, but I was getting daily text messages that says, I'll find you and we'll die together. So I was very afraid that if I was with family or friends, he would kill all of us. So there was no room. And there was no services online. And there wasn't anything that you could go to say, hey, here's what's happening to me. How do I solve it? And so Safe in Harm's Way was born of those needs to, first of all, enact the feelings that go on in toxic relationships, identify them as their hallmark red flags of abuse, and then say in simple statements what you're feeling and what's the solution. The thing I am most proud of is we are the only organization in the country that offers what we call a decision tree matrix. You can find that at thelastimsorry.com. Now, yeah, because, you get 1,000 apologies and no change. So that allows people to say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I'm experiencing. They ask a series of questions. And then they are presented with two unique solutions that they can do right away. And it's built for men, it's built for women, people of color, people in the queer community, people who have English as a secondary language, and people who are medically compromised. Because the best way to power and control somebody if you're a diabetic is to take their insulin. So what do you do in those situations, and how do I get the help? We have that at thelastimsorry.com. And that's why everything you'll see at safeinharmsway.org is built around those feelings. So one of them is, I'm very scared and I need help right now. One of them is, I'm worried about being followed. How can I protect my privacy? I'm afraid there are guns in our home. What do I need to do? So it's just very simple statements that then allows you to multiple resources that you can click on and access at any time of day or night and find the solutions that you'll need to take the very next step. Because it could be a while. We are not a 24/7 hotline. We do not have emergency housing. And because we know that calls go unanswered there and there is no room at the inn, we want people to be able to find solutions they can act on immediately in anticipation of hoping to take the next step, where they can take the next step, where they can take the next step that allows them to finally leave or to seek the safety that they deserve.
Carolyn, I love that so much because I love that you're really empowering people to give them, because we were talking about last week how you are in that trauma fog and you can't think. And so when you say, you give them that statement, here's the feeling, and then here's the statement, here's one or two options, this or this, it really narrows it down. And it's like, hey, I see myself, I hear myself. Okay, that I can do
Yes.
today. I can't leave today,
Right.
That's a really big step. And we'll talk
Yeah.
more about that in a minute. It's such a big step. But I can do this today.
Hmm.
Okay, that's a nugget. I couldn't get answered on the hotline maybe, but here you go. That somebody hears me, knows me, and guess what? It is abuse. And that's like you said, to even be recognized, acknowledged. And I love the name, the last, I'm sorry, .com. Everybody needs to check that out. We talked about that last week as well, about grace versus, excuse, and how I know in my case, my religious beliefs, my
Hmm.
loyalty to to forgiveness. I'm expected to forgive. What is it? 77 times 7, whatever
Yes.
time, right? All of that keeps us confused, right? Anyway, all right. I love Safe in Harm's Way so much, and apparently others do too. And you did make it to Broadway because of Safe in Harm's Way. Dan, can we show everyone? Carolyn, there you are. Tell us about making it to Broadway.
Well, it was this beautiful, we started really amping up our services during COVID because very desperate times with trying to find solutions. So we skyrocketed with our usage at Safe and Harm's Way of people accessing our services, which I had somebody reach out to me and say, I have billboards. What would you do with billboards? And I said, I know exactly what I would do with billboards. And I hung up the phone and I had zero idea what I was going to do in billboards. And we did a little test market. And he introduced me to the umbrella organization that manages all of the outdoor media. And I pitched them on Safe and Harm's Way, and they agreed and gave us 4, we call missions, 4 opportunities to take our services on billboards across the country. So what we do there is I'm a data geek. I'm a data geek, which is why I love Joe. It's how we got connected. I want to know all the data and specifics. So we knew at the time, and it's still happening, that people on Native American Indian reservations were sweeping domestic violence and also the disappearance of women in tribes. So we targeted tribal communities based on location with our resources on billboards, because then no one can issue power and control. They can't control what they're seeing when they drive. They can't control what they're seeing when they go to the grocery store. They can't control what they're seeing when they're pumping gas. So our services ran across gas station videos. It ran across billboards outside of reservations. It ran because the number one way that women die in pregnancy in the United States is at their hands of their baby's dad. 2 times the rate of placebo or blood problems. So we take our services, we market where high rise medical office buildings are that have elevators that house video screens. And then we take our services and we put them on the video screens. So if they're taking that elevator to the top floor of their physician, they are suddenly aware that there is hope and that there are services that they can gain access to. So we go where the people are, all in an effort to help the most historically marginalized people facing the biggest disparities in economics or transportation or even access to care. So that led to us being connected with Neon, which is a New York Madison Avenue advertising agency. And I showed them all my dreams, and they came up with the most amazing concepts and missions. And then we went back together to that umbrella organization. And I said to him, and I have a 30-year sales history, and I said to the CEO of that organization, I said, look, I'm going to give you like the biggest close of my life. And I want to know on the next set of billboards who you're going to call in Times Square to get us on at least 5, and that you can have their names to me by Thursday. And there was this long pause, and he said, I know exactly who I'm going to call. I'll get you their names by Thursday, and it'll be at least 5 billboards. Can you handle that? And my team at Neon and I are like, we can handle that. We hang up, and Neon's like, I have no idea how we're going to handle that. So we just created these missions. We took everything we had done, we digitalized it, we put it into video formats, we updated websites, and then we premiered in the bright lights of Times Square. But then again, spread all across the country on close to 750 video screens. Again, gas stations, billboards, targeted into areas where we knew people needed help. And Any place there was a video screen, any train station, anything that there was a video screen, our services ran constantly. And the number of impressions we made have exceeded over 1 billion opportunities for people to find our help at Safe and Harm's Way.
Yay. Like I said
Pretty
at the
cool.
top of the show, out front and out loud with this activism. And yeah, and like I said, I am a fan. It is time for our second break. Don't go far. What a great time to segue out. So we'll be back with more with Carolyn and more Soul CPR. Don't go far.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
I'm Ann Papayotti today with my guest, Carolyn Markel, talking about domestic violence. And as we approach Halloween, we often think of monsters as mystical creatures who are lurking in the shadows, but the reality is far more terrifying. Monsters hide in plain sight. Monsters hide behind titles like CEO, like senior VP, or of organizations like your boyfriend, or multiple platinum recording artists like we see in the news, or championship athletes, or elected officials, police officers, clergymen, doctors. We've read the headlines, right, Carolyn? We've been shocked by recent videos, especially this P. Diddy Cassie one that's been leaked recently. I remember years ago the Rihanna Chris Brown photos that were leaked from that. But for those of us who didn't have black eyes, the traditional kind of violence, and we sometimes minimized our abuse, sometimes out of fear of not being believed. And I know that's something when you and I talked before, it's like just to make sure that we tell other people, believe if somebody tells you, believe them. But why do you think sometimes we have to see to believe? Like this video of P. Diddy. Cassie had been saying this for years, apparently, in the reports. But it took this video being leaked to really push her case forward. Why do you think it is that we have to see to believe?
I think the stories are so egregious. It's really hard to comprehend that one person can do that to another person, especially when they claim to love them. Just as people living in it are caught in that whirlwind tunnel of, but they say they love me, but this is happening. But they say they love me. They apologized. They're going to stop. It's hard to realize the dynamics of why someone wouldn't leave the very first time. Well, people don't leave the very first time because there's been months, if not years, of degradation against somebody else. But there's also love there. I just was on a symposium a couple weeks ago, and the woman talked about how hard it was to comprehend what was happening to her because she loved him. And he
Right.
said he loved her. And I thought, I haven't even been talking about that. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's the reality. There's
Yeah.
love there. And so
There's
it's
love.
hard. And just it's hard with friends and family and coworkers because the monsters who hide at home work really hard to put on a good facade, really hard to make that
Mhm.
happen. And so from the outside world, it's difficult to comprehend. And when the actions are so egregious, I personally align it to the flu. People don't want to catch that. I mean, if I can say that that didn't happen, then it means that I don't really know anybody in my world who that could happen to either, because that's just ridiculous. That doesn't happen often. Actually, it happens all the time. It
Right.
happens all the time. In this country, our statistics are rising faster and faster
Yeah.
at the rates of homicide, at the rates of sexual violence, not only for women, but for men as well.
Yeah.
So I think I had this question this week because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I've been nonstop interviews, and we've got a book launching. And so it's been nonstop. But someone asked me, what do you think the solution is to fix all of it? And I said, oh, like, how long do you got? A week? Are you going to feed me for 7 days? We'd have to really actually enact the laws that are online already, that are all there. Very rarely are those put through. We have to believe people when they start. Statistically, you are more likely to be struck by lightning than have a survivor lie to you about what happened to them. So you have to believe, you have to
Yeah.
support, you have to be a good human. And we have at Safe in Harm's Way a list of 15 things that people can say as friends, family, or coworkers that lets you know you're a safe space. It's not rocket science. You
Yeah.
just believe. You're just a good person. You just say, hey, I don't have the answers to here, but I'm willing to keep listening. Hey, I don't know what I can do, but would it help if I researched 3 things for you and got back to you? Hey, I believe you. And I'm so sorry that this happened to you. And it's those things that
Mhm.
start to create the ever expanding opportunities and web of goodness that brings solutions to people, that increases their confidence, that allows them to realize that they are still lovable, and then enact change in their relationship so that hopefully they can plan and plot a way to safely leave that relationship.
And that planning is so imperative. It safety planning for while you stay, even,
Mhm.
as well as safety plan for when you leave, is very important. And that's the kind of resources that you can find at from the hotline.org, as well as from Safe in Harm's Way, right? Is help with
Mhm.
this safety planning and understanding that. And pets, and I know you talk about pets as well. Now, one
Yes.
thing, I think there's more pet shelters than there are abuse
Yes.
shelters, but pets are often um, threatened in domestic
Yes.
violence situations as a way to
Yeah.
control the victim.
Yeah. 90% of the time, an abuser is also maiming, injuring, or killing the family pet. Now, you would think that anybody in the family dynamic would go, oh my gosh, we're out. Like, if we're out, he killed our dog, we're out. No. What it does is say, if I leave, what's that person going to do to me? What
Right.
it says to a mom is, if I would have to share custody with him, what's he going to do to my kids?
Yeah.
People would rather stay in that relationship and take the violence versus ever leave their children by themselves with the person issuing the abuse. And so, if you can't take your kids and you can't take your pets and you can't ensure them that forever and ever they'll be safe, then at least if you stay, you're the block between them and the abuse. Maybe, but you're hedging your bets that you are. So those things actually issue more power and control over the entire family when pets are involved than they do ever inspire anybody to get out as you would think it would. Just doesn't,
Right.
has the exact opposite effect of staying to make sure everybody in the house, you can at least try to provide safety for them.
Yeah. Fear, always the dynamic to ensure that power and control. Love, which is that confusing thing. Abusers don't abuse 24/7. And so
Mm-mm.
because they are loving some of the time or behaving some or whatever you want to call it, they can keep people in this dynamic of okay. And then that apology that you're talking about, that I'm sorry, it comes back. And then there's that begging or that pleading
Mm-hmm.
times. And then they play the victim role. And then now you have the power, but it doesn't feel like it. Or they play on that
Mm-hmm.
empathy, about that empathy. And then feeling that you need to
Mm-hmm.
be the one to try to fix it because,
Yeah,
right, you feel
that's what you
responsible.
do. Yeah.
What you do. That's what you do. Thank you, Dan. I see your message. We will skip this last commercial break because there's so much more we want to talk about. Okay. Oftentimes we'll also hear people say, what did he or she do to deserve it? How
Mm-hmm.
did he or she set him or her off? What did they do? They must have done something. He or she wouldn't have just done this. So that victim blaming, shaming
Mm-hmm.
type of behavior. Have you run into a lot of that in your work?
Every person, every person. And I think it's also a way for people to, again, disassociate from abuse. Like, certainly, it couldn't happen in my family, even though statistically, 50% of the women you know will be assaulted sexually in their lifetime. 50% now in the United States. But if you can go, it must have been some kind of fault of theirs, then that allows you to sleep at night about your own family or your own situation. It also allows you to disassociate from the regularity of it and that it could actually be your friend. It allows those kinds of statement allows for that. I still hear, and in the past couple of weeks, I've heard more stories like this of even police officers saying, you know what, he's a really good looking guy. Why do you think, he doesn't have to rape anybody. He can get sex whenever he wants.
Right.
It's no one's going to believe you. No one's going
No.
to believe you. Those are the things that keep people from reporting because it's hard. Those are the things that keep people stopped in relationships because who's going to believe me when I leave? Who's going to love me when I leave? Who's going to know what I lived through and even find me as a partner they'd want to have? And
Mhm.
I talk about this point a lot because of my experience. That was definitely something I thought about. And the reality was I decided, he doesn't get to win on this one. And so that's where doing the hard work of healing really, really matters. And I can tell you when you do that hard work of healing, it's not going to be glorious days every day, but you will have amazing days every day. And you will find people. In fact, that's a barometer for me now. If I
Yeah.
have a relationship with a man and he's like, oh my God, you are so badass, boom, I'm in. If they're like, why do you do that? Then they're not going to get the dynamic. They're not going
That's
to. And I tell you, I've had great relationships. I've had healthy relationships. I've had great sex. And all the men, because I've now know to walk away
mhm.
if someone doesn't treat me how I deserve to be treated,
Mhm.
I find the better people and the better people and the better people because your discernment allows you to find those people and your triggers in your body, which people so worry about. I love them because I know my body is calculating things faster than I ever could. So if somebody gives me like this ick feeling, I'm like, I can't name it. But if you're supposed to be in my life, I'm going to believe you come back around. But right now, you don't get to
Yeah.
hang here anymore.
And
So
that's
that's part of it.
yeah, and a lot of people ask me, I don't think I'll ever trust again. I'm like, the only person you ever have to trust again is yourself. And that's
Mhm.
what you just described. When you trust yourself, you'll know and you'll have that reaction. You'll know in your gut who's right and wrong. You knew before.
Yes.
Probably there was a red flag that you overlooked or you let it be pink and you kept going anyway. That first thing that you had to you had to negotiate that slut calling. In the beginning, you said,
Yeah.
no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't. You had to keep going. And we kind of let these things happen. When we look back, we see what we allowed on some level that was red, and we called it
Mhm.
pink on some level,
Right.
right? I want to talk about something because I haven't had a chance to really have discussion with anybody about it beyond a little quick thing with my friend Lee. Um, the movie "It Ends with Us" that's out right
Mhm.
now that features. I've not seen the movie. I read the book a couple of years ago. Um, it's an international best-selling novel. It's now a popular movie. It's starring Blake Lively. It's facing some criticism for somewhat quote unquote glamorizing domestic violence. Are you familiar with the storyline or the movie?
I am familiar with the storyline, but I have not watched the movie. I have a very dear friend who works in advocacy named Christy, and I'll get you the show notes. But she wrote a very long article about the movie. I didn't see it because the one clip I saw was her in the hospital asking for a divorce, and everything ends in roses and okay, you get it. And I
Yeah.
think that is the exact moment that all hell breaks loose for people in
Right.
domestic violence shelters. There is no one that just walks away and says, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the point when really the abuse quadruples via the court system and via the abuser still having access. So just from that clip alone and based on Christie's summary of it, I have not watched it because I thought, I know they worked with No More, and I really admire the organization No More. Um, I don't know that they
Yeah.
listen to No More. So I don't, yeah, I don't.
Well, and I think that it was a bit tone deaf in some ways. Again, I didn't see the movie. The book is based on the author's mother's experience with her dad, and of course, she didn't see this the abuse because her mother did leave when she was 2 years old, so she didn't have her firsthand. But this was what her mother shared with her, and then it was fictionalized, and there's a fantasy component. But I think part of this is the book was marketed as romance. And then part of the
Yes.
promotion for the movie were, um, I think, glamorized. Grab your girlfriends, wear your florals, and go to the movie. And I think part of the controversy is about the promotion and that there was no trigger warning. So people who
Right.
thought that it was going to be romance and then have experienced abuse were triggered, right?
Mhm.
And then there wasn't a lot about resources at the end. I think now, but No More has the resources they tied into the movie, but there was resource at the end. I'm told when I really dug into it, but it was buried into the credits at the end. It wasn't a big feature, so some of the criticisms they missed the opportunity to really, really make statements about domestic violence. Um, for me and for my friend Lee, the big message, I read the book, she saw the movie, was exactly what your friend communicated. It's just not that easy.
Mhm.
Leaving is the most dangerous time. And so maybe I know there's a follow-up book I've not read. It starts with us, where now her life moves on with her daughter. Maybe stalking starts. Maybe
Right.
it gets dangerous. I don't know. I've not read that. But I think that the way it ends does leave it a little too. I wish it were that easy. I just
Right.
that's what I say. So anybody who does see it or read it just needs to be aware. If you are in a domestic violence situation, it's just typically not that easy to say I'm done and boom, it heats up from here.
Mhm.
So that's I just feel like we would be remiss if we did not make that comment, as popular as this book and movie are right now. And I hope that none of you ever experience domestic violence, but if you do, know that leaving requires a plan,
Mhm. Yes.
right?
Statistically, it's the most dangerous time. It's a 75% chance that you'll be killed in the first 3 months. And when guns are in the home, that's my first question I ask when we work with people. I don't do a lot of on ones, but um, that's the first question I ask because it's almost a 1,000% fold of. you losing your life with
Yeah.
guns in the home.
And I feel like I was very blessed because I had was threatened with guns twice, but I made it out.
Mhm.
Carolyn, we're at the end of the show, and I could have you on forever. But do you have a key takeaway message? And we even skipped a commercial for our listeners today. If you had a key takeaway, what would it be?
Sure. Everybody talks about what can I do? This problem is so big. How do I even solve it? We have a book coming out called Agents of Social Change. You can actually buy it today. It tells the story of everybody doing their one little thing that encompassed all of Safe in Harm's Way. And we're
Mhm.
looking at having reached with our direct services over 126,000 people. So if you think that change can't be created by your one little gift, find the people that you want to give your gift to and do it consistently. That's change. Believe survivors when they come to you. That's your takeaway. You can do these things in your own zone of genius to create change. While the problem is big, it is not insurmountable when folks start to take action one tiny moment at a time.
Beautiful. And how can they connect with you? It'll be in the show notes. Is there a preferred way for people to reach you?
You could just go to safeinharmsway.org, find all our information. I'm on all social medias, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Safe in Harm's Way is on all social medias as well. So you can find us there and access services and then share with your friends in a benign way, like, hey, I saw this. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. What do you think? And that might be the thing that gets them engaged. So all those kinds of places you can find us.
Thank you. Thank you again for joining me today, Carolyn. It was an absolute privilege to have you. Great
And
to
you're one of
see you.
my favorite humans. I was so happy to be able to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as we conclude this episode of Soul CPR Healing Out Loud, please remember that healing is not a linear journey, it is a profound transformation. And I just want to say if today's message resonated with you, then please share this podcast with those who might need a lifeline of their own. Just that act itself may help someone. Subscribe, rate, and leave a review to help us reach more hearts. You can connect with me as always on social media. On Facebook, it's going to be Skyview Coaching, or at Ann Papayotti on LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. Let me know your thoughts, your stories, the topics you'd like to see more of in future episodes. We'll make sure it happens. So until next time, may you find strength in your vulnerability and courage in your journey. Thank you for listening. Breathe deeply, love openly, and live soulfully. Good day.
Good day.
This has been Soul CPR with host Ann Papayotti. Breathe life back into your spirit with each episode, where she and special guests explore the relationships that hurt us and discover that healing can only begin with you. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.